Hey there, and welcome back to another My Hero Academia Season 6 review. And today we'll be talking about the latest episode to drop, One's Justice, which follows up on last week's cliffhanger ending of the Mountain Villa assault beginning, with Kaminari having his own big moment of protecting the entire squad from the electric villain. Things are really starting to heat up in the story now, and this episode we see the first major casualty of the war in one of the show's most emotional moments ever. But more on that later, because for now, with all that being said, let's jump into the episode. So we start off the episode in Mission Control, where we learn a little bit about how Edshot's team are going about their sting operation. They didn't just bum rush the front entrance like it sort of looked like at first glance, but they'd already surrounded the villa and were attacking it from all sides, sealing off the entrances to prevent any of the villains escaping and reforming the group later. And on top of that, smaller strike teams had managed to find all of the secret entrances to the underground sections of the villa out in the forest, and had blocked them off as well, meaning the only way out for the villains would be through the front door, where the main army of heroes are. Pretty much meaning that to get through, they have to fight, and will just get beaten down and arrested. And speaking of which, we see Redestro and Trumpet holding a meeting down in the lower cavern under the villa, wondering where the rest of the PLF is. So, do they seriously not have alarms that would trigger when somebody attacks the base? Feels like a bit of an oversight for an organisation that has so many members who might sell them out to the authorities or who may be undercover. Such a rookie mistake. But then again, this was originally Redestro's operation anyway, and we know that dude is incompetent from when he lost to the League of Villains like an utter chump. So I guess that it probably isn't all that surprising now I think about it. But anyway, some grunt runs in and starts screaming about how they're under attack and that all the exits have been sealed off, the villa's destroyed, and now they're completely surrounded. And so Redestro's stress levels jump to maximum, and he shits himself because, fair enough, why wouldn't you? All his important plans are about to come to nothing right before his moment of triumph. For the second time. Woof, big L for Redestro. But then we cut back outside where Kaminari's still locked in his duel with the other lightning guy, who's about to up the voltage even higher, thinking it's going to fry Kaminari. And yeah, I would say that's actually a definite possibility, but good thing it doesn't matter, because Edshot's there to prove himself an utter badass and stretches himself out, impaling the dude and various other villains, making tiny holes in their lungs and incapacitating them, before Midnight puts them to sleep with her quirk to prevent them moving and killing themselves. And my god, I really enjoy seeing how OP some of these top heroes are. It's fun seeing them lay waste to the minor villains. We need more of this kind of stuff. But anyway, Kamui Woods then uses his quirk to trap a bunch more villains, and seriously, this guy's another one of those insanely OP heroes that really deserves a little bit more focus. I'm pretty sure he's the first real hero that we actually see strutting his stuff in the context of the show when Deku watches him fight that giant guy, only to be intercepted by Mount Lady. And I'm not a huge advocate for filler, but it would have been nice to see their characters fleshed out a bit in the work studies groups a bit more, but whatever. Mudman and the Mushroom Girl then destroy a whole other bunch of goons, and seriously, how many of these guys are there? And how weak are they? Dozens of them have been taken out in an instant by like 4 heroes. It's going to be a clean sweep at this rate. I mean, obviously it's going to go wrong, but imagine thinking you're going to overthrow Hero Society and then not even being able to measure up to students. First year students. Quite embarrassing. And then we cut inside the villa to see that Hawks has taken his chance to get Twice alone and ambush him to ensure that one of the most dangerous members of the PLF can't do his thing. Makes me sad to see how betrayed Twice is feeling in this moment though. You can't help but feel bad for him, even though he is a villain. And then, in true anime fashion, instead of dealing with him then and there and knocking him out or something, Hawks decides to monologue instead, talking through all the ways in which he'd betrayed Twice's trust, and how he'd always been planning to get him alone to defeat him, and then to use him as the weak link to gather intel and give it to his allies, basically rubbing it in Twice's face that this was all his fault. And this of course gives him flashbacks to when he accidentally screwed up by bringing Overhaul to the League of Villains base, which got Mag killed and lost Compress and Arm, and how now he's once again stuffed up. He's ruined things for his friends, for the only people who accept and believe in him. And he's been betrayed by somebody that he knew he probably shouldn't be trusting, but he couldn't help but accept as part of the team, because that's what he needed when he was feeling lost, right before he joined up with the League of Villains. He found that family, the place he belonged, and so he wanted to be able to give that to somebody who also said that they didn't fit in, only for it all to be thrown back in his face. And my god, I can't believe this show is somehow making me feel bad for a guy who wants to topple the government and kill a bunch of people. But it is, because I feel bad for him. Hawks then offers to help him rebuild his life after he serves his sentence because he thinks that he isn't evil. He isn't a monster. He's a good but misguided person who deserves a chance at redemption. But of course, Twice is not in the mood for talking anymore, as he's not going to betray the people that care for him to try and reform under a system that's already failed him before, and so their battle begins. And meanwhile, we see Fat Gum, Sun Eater, and Tokoyami split off from the main attack group and head to one of the villa's underground entry points that are within the mansion itself, and thus haven't been closed off yet like the others had been. And so, Sun Eater blitzes a bunch of goons and Fat Gum guards the entrance, while Tokoyami gets his big moment and unleashes Dark Shadow Ragnarok, a superpowered version of his normal Dark Shadow that smashes down the tunnel and defeats Reed Destro by breaking his legs, before retreating because he sees Gigantomachia sitting down there in the darkness and gets kinda scared of the monster. Anyway, Fat Gum then stuffs Tokoyami into his stomach fat and takes him away from the battle, whilst we cut back to the confrontation between Twice and Hawks, where Twice is not backing down, despite Hawks being able to destroy all of the doubles that he creates as soon as he can make them, which basically nullifies him as a combatant. But Hawks decides that since Twice's will seems to be unyielding, and it seems like he's not going to be able to give up, he has to die. And so he cuts him down with a feather sword and moves to finish him off, with the promise of telling his friends how much he cares about them. Before Darby arrives, just in the nick of time, and blasts Hawks away, burning away the majority of his feathers, and leaving him in a real no-win scenario. He can't take the time to take down Twice anymore, and he also has to evade Darby. And on top of that, he has no real way to fight back or block his attacks, because really, this is the worst possible matchup for him. And so he's decided that now he's incapacitated Twice, he can just spare him, and he'll escape from Darby with his body to put him into custody. But Twice fights on and teams with Darby to force Hawks out the window, where he loops around to ambush them, but is stopped by Darby, revealing that he knows his true name. And so whilst Hawks and Darby continue to fight, Twice sends off one last double, just as Hawks jumps through the fire to come up behind him with his sword and kill him. Anyway though, his double comes up behind a hero that had caught Toga and Compress and straight up kills him, but then he begins to melt as he'd taken damage falling from the balcony, and his original form is also dead. So he apologizes to his friends and thanks Toga for being there for him all this time, before, after one last hug, he succumbs and returns to the mud. Damn. Once again, it's truly insane how much they can make you feel such grief at the death of one of the villain characters. He's been around for so long and he was always so much fun, and now it's just a shame that he's dead. And it also sort of skews you to feel a little bit angry at the hero for making the choices that they did. And I know it was the right choice for the story, and I also knew it was coming from the manga, but still, he was my favourite villain, and now I'm sad. But anyway, we then finish with the preview of next week, which promises Hawks versus Darby, and more from the hospital battle, and so I'm still very excited. But anyway, with all that being said, these are just my opinions, and now I'd like to hear yours. What did you think of the episode? You like it, hate it? I'm curious for your thoughts, so make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and let me know.